Hey everybody, welcome back to A Day in the Garden. It's Beth and Lucas as well as Liberty from Our Liberty House. And today we're going to be pruning our English hybrid tea rose as well as our climbing roses.
It's late January here in Northern California, and it's the perfect time to start pruning these roses back and get them ready for the spring growing season. All we're going to need today is some long sleeves, a set of large pruners, and even some small ones along with gloves. Let's get going.
So today we have two different types of roses we're going to prune. We have our hybrid tea rose, we actually have two of them, as well as two climbing roses. But we're going to start with our hybrid teas. A couple reasons you want to prune and need to prune is just for the benefit of your rose health. This is going to prevent a lot of diseases your following season, as well as it gives you the opportunity to shape your rose into your desired size and shape.
Last year when we pruned this in late January, same time of year, we cut it down to about 36-inch tall canes, and it got huge. It was above the roof line of our house and probably 6 feet wide. So we're going to cut them back down to about 18 to 24 inches, and we're going to focus on shaping it, one, and two, healthy, thick green canes.
And your rose might not look like this right now. We actually, late fall last year, we removed a lot of the leaves on the lower 3 feet of this just to help prevent any powdery mildew and a lot of that disease already. So if you already have those leaves there, go ahead and remove a lot of those leaves just so you can really see what you're working with and identify which canes you want to keep versus which canes you want to cut.
It's just that easy.
Mm-hmm. And I think, what do you want, about 5 canes?
Yeah, 4 to 5 canes to create the shape, and then we'll kind of go over it closer, but we want to thin the middle out a little bit, or we don't want crossing canes or overcrowded in the middle, because that'll just breed disease and allow for pest growth later on in the year.
Mm-hmm. So let's get cutting.
All right, so the first thing I like to do, just out of preference, is start clearing out some of the canes I know we're not going to keep. Right now it's just very crowded, and it's hard to judge where exactly we're going to keep our final 4 to 5 canes. So something like this, it's this year's growth. I know I'm going to get rid of it. I'll just cut it, lay it off to the side. Even some of this smaller stuff. Like I said, this isn't necessary if you know exactly where you're going to keep the canes, but just for visualization, I like to start removing some of the stuff that we're 100% going to get rid of. I just removed that one because it's in the middle and it's not going to produce a good looking plant. I'll take this one off. You'll see we're starting to open it up and get a better visualization of how it's going to
You
turn
can see
out.
this one right here is rubbing against this. So let's just cut that one straight off.
Take these big long ones off.
So to really point out exactly what we're doing, you can tell right here that this is the main part, the main stem, and it has these 3 offshoots or 4 offshoots. So I'm just going to pluck all 4 of those offshoots off because this is going to be the cane that we're maintaining. So I'm going to start with this stem that we just talked about, and I have found my bud. I'm actually just doing it kind of in line with these here, and I'm just going to cut at a 45-degree angle just above that bud. Do the this left-handed. Just right there. Okay. And then let me grab this one.
We keeping this?
You're good. And if you mess up halfway and make like a bad cut, don't worry, just cut again right below it, or at the next node down, just to prevent any extra disease or any cuts that you don't want.
Yeah, let's take these two out,
Yeah.
the middle.
Yeah.
Now we're getting down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, real six main, and we could probably
I almost think we should just get rid of this one because
Yeah.
it's nice and spaced.
square.
Square.
And now what we have is a nice pruned hybrid tea rose. We kept 5 canes, and it has a nice shape, and then we'll let it go, and always can prune for shape in the spring and summer. If something starts growing, some suckers start growing out of the middle, you can prune them back. Once we're done pruning, the last thing we want to do for plant health is get rid of all of this dead rose trimmings and leaves around from the root. Roses don't like wet like crowns or soggy, nasty leaves all around, so this is just a good, simple thing to do at the end for overall plant health.
One thing this also does is prevents any disease, because these leaves are usually harvesting some sort of illness or disease to the plant. So removing that, and you just want to throw it in your yard waste bin and not your compost. And then when it comes to all of these clippings we got from the rose, we're actually going to remove all the leaves from it, yard waste the leaves, but then shred the canes for our compost.
All right, so this is our second hybrid tea. It's a year younger. We planted it last year, February. So this one will actually be a lot easier to prune because it's younger, it doesn't have as much growth. So we're gonna cut this thing back about 18 to 24 inches, keep 4 to 5 canes, cutting to an outward bud.
How easy?
All right, so the next 2 roses we're gonna prune are our climbing roses, and these are different strategy than the hybrid tea roses. We planted these as well last year, and you can see how tall they got. And what we're gonna do first is defoliate. We're gonna take all of these off so we can see the structure. We don't wanna cut these all the way back because they already did all this work to climb this trellis. So we'll cut all the leaves off, and then we'll prune them back to about 3 canes per side of the trellis, and then we'll thin out the rest to give it room, and that'll promote it to bloom instead of grow in the spring.
Okay, so while I'm up here defoliating, I'm also going to do a little bit of pruning, because basically what you want is that 2 to 3 stems going across the entire trellis. We have about 3 stems up here, but they have a lot of different offshoots going off that main cane, so I'm going to cut those off just so it's one singular cane that's going across, and I'm going to help weave it back through the top of this trellis as well. Okie dokie, we are done defoliating, so we're ready to start pruning. Again, these climbing roses, this is our first winter with them. Last spring we bought the bare root roses to plant. So you can tell just by how thin these canes are. But anyways, when I was up top, you saw me start weaving some in, and that's because this side has 3 really good canes that grew like crazy last year and are already pretty much going across the top of the trellis. So those 3 canes are the ones I'm going to keep. You can see this little guy right here, starting way down here, is one I'm going to get rid of, just to promote growth on the rest of the canes through this season. And then all these other little ones, actually that's pretty much it. 1, 2, 3, because I only have 4 big canes, so that's the only one I'm gonna prune on this side. Okay. So let's just follow this one down, and you can see this cane actually crosses with this other one at 2 different points, so that's even another good reason to prune it back, because a lot of you might be tempted. You want a really full rose bush or climbing rose, and you want to keep as many canes as possible, but rubbing like this can cause disease in your rose because it's just rubbing, and that friction will cause tears and cuts that allows disease in. So I'm going to cut all the way down to this little nub right here, and then I will carefully pull this thing out. I might actually cut it in half here just to help me a couple times. Pull this baby out without causing any damage to the cane I'm trying to keep. Twist tie. Another twist tie. There we go. So now we just have to do the other one. Okay, on the other side. So, couple funny things with this rose. We planted these 2 roses at the exact same time. The other side that rose focused on growth all season last year and gave very few blooms. This side I think got quite a bit more sun, and all she wanted to do was bloom, bloom, bloom. So her canes are not nearly as tall as what the other side did, but she has more of them. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 canes. I want to keep 3 of them. My process of elimination is keeping the tallest ones. And in this instance, we have these 2, which are the tallest, and you follow them down. It actually comes down to 1 cane. So normally I would want to cut one of these 2 canes to keep it one singular long cane. But in this instance, since this rose is only a year old, I'm going to let it grow and see what happens from that. So I'm going to count that as 1 cane. I'm going to keep this outside one here, as well as this outside one here, and get rid of these 2 that are in the middle. So let's go. Okay, so I'm getting rid of this one. Put down here at the base. More twist ties. And then I'm getting rid of this one too. This one kind of looks haggard anyways, so That is A-okay. All right, and then I'm just gonna get back on the ladder and kind of float these back very carefully through the top. It was hard to do last season, and what ended up happening was our roses just tried to climb straight and there's nothing to climb that high, so I'm gonna try to weave it through and hopefully have a really good rose season next year. Ooh, might need one. Oh, here we go. I think what I'm going to try to do with this one right here is wrap it here around the outside. And then next season, once it starts growing, I'll help train it to come back up this way. And twist ties are definitely your friends with these roses, especially if you live in a windy area, because you don't want the roses flying all over the place and having a hard time to grab on. So that's it.
All right, so after we're done pruning, it's a really good time to give your roses fertilizer. We like this Job's Rose and Flower. It's what we used all last season and our roses were great. So follow the instructions, give them a good fertilizer in the winter time and get them ready for spring.
Well, that's pretty much it for today.
Time to clip these back and put them through the shredder for compost. Move on to the next project.
Thanks for joining us in the garden. We'll see you next time.
Have a good one.